The universe is a vast expanse of myriad worlds, teeming with life and civilizations, each unique in its culture, technology, and history. Among these, Deathworlders were often regarded with a mix of awe and dread. Hailing from planets deemed too dangerous for most life forms, these beings thrived in environments where survival was a daily battle. Their resilience, strength, and adaptability were unmatched. Yet, for all their prowess, they had long been seen as a paradox. Capable of great violence, yet adhering to a strict code of mercy and restraint. For centuries, the Deathworlders had upheld this code, even when provoked. They believed that their strength was a gift to protect, not to dominate. They showed mercy even to those who sought their downfall, offering aid to the wounded, sparing the lives of their enemies, and refraining from retaliation even when grievously wronged. Their reputation spread throughout the galaxies, not just as formidable warriors, but as noble beings who chose peace over conquest. But the day came when even the most patient and merciful reached their breaking point. It began with a fragile alliance. The Galactic Coalition, a union of various species and worlds, sought the Deathworlders' aid against a common enemy, the Skarn, a ruthless empire bent on domination. The Deathworlders agreed, not for the promise of power or wealth, but for the hope of lasting peace. For years, the Coalition fought side by side with the Deathworlders, their combined forces slowly turning the tide against the Skarn. Victory seemed within reach. But as the final battle loomed, a dark secret emerged. The Coalition leaders, fearing the Deathworlders' potential to become too powerful, had conspired with remnants of the Skarn. They planned to eliminate the Deathworlders once the war was over, seeing them as the next great threat. The betrayal was swift and brutal. Caught off guard, many Deathworlder settlements were decimated. Their leaders captured, their people hunted. The Coalition and the Skarn rejoiced, believing they had secured their dominance. But they had underestimated the Deathworlders. The survivors were few, scattered across the galaxies. But their resolve was unbroken. For the first time in their history, the Deathworlders abandoned their code of mercy. The betrayal had cut deep, shattering their belief in peace and justice. They had been deceived, and the price was paid in the blood of their kin. A call went out across the stars, a rallying cry for all Deathworlders. From the frozen tundras of Grelthar to the volcanic plains of Zathura, they came. Warriors, scientists, healers, all united by a common purpose. No more mercy. No more games. Only retribution. The leaders of the surviving clans convened on the desolate world of Arcones, a place untouched by the betrayal. Here, they forged a new covenant, one that abandoned the old ways of restraint. They would strike back, not just for revenge, but to ensure that no one would dare betray them again. The Coalition and the Skarn, still reveling in their perceived victory, were unprepared for the fury that descended upon them. The Deathworlders launched a series of coordinated attacks, targeting key military installations, supply lines, and leadership councils. On the industrial world of Vexus Prime, a Coalition stronghold, the skies darkened as Deathworlder ships descended. Their weapons were more advanced than anyone had anticipated, a testament to their ingenuity and adaptability. Within hours, the planet's defenses crumbled. The Deathworlders showed no mercy, capturing the Coalition leaders and broadcasting their executions across the galaxy. The message was clear. The era of mercy was over. As the Deathworlders' campaign of retribution continued, fear spread among the Coalition and Skarn forces. Worlds that had once been loyal to the Coalition began to waver, their leaders seeking to distance themselves from the betrayal. Some attempted to negotiate, offering reparations and apologies. But the Deathworlders were beyond words. In the shadowed halls of the Coalition capital, panic set in. The leaders convened in secret, desperately seeking a solution. They underestimated the depth of the Deathworlders' resolve. Every attempt at diplomacy was met with silence or swift retaliation. Faced with a relentless onslaught, the Coalition and Skarn sought to unite their forces. Old grudges were set aside, and a desperate alliance was formed. They pooled their resources, developing new weapons and strategies, hoping to stem the tide of Deathworlder vengeance. But the Deathworlders were always a step ahead. They anticipated every move, their strategies evolving with each battle. Their spies infiltrated the highest echelons of the enemy alliance, feeding false information and sowing discord. On the battlefield, the Deathworlders fought with unmatched ferocity. Their warriors, once bound by codes of honor, now fought with a single-minded purpose: to annihilate those who had wronged them. As the Deathworlders' campaign of Retribution continued, fear spread among the Coalition and Skarn forces. Worlds that had once been loyal to the Coalition began to waver, their leaders seeking to distance themselves from the betrayal. Some attempted to negotiate, offering reparations and apologies, but the Deathworlders were beyond words. In the shadowed halls of the Coalition capital, panic set in. The leaders convened in secret, desperately seeking a solution. They underestimated the depth of the Deathworlders' resolve. Every attempt at diplomacy was met with silence or swift retaliation. Faced with the relentless onslaught, the Coalition and Skarn sought to unite their forces. Old grudges were set aside, and a desperate alliance was formed. They pooled their resources, developing new weapons and strategies, hoping to stem the tide of Deathworlder vengeance. But the Deathworlders were always a step ahead. They anticipated every move, their strategies evolving with each battle. Their spies infiltrated the highest echelons of the enemy alliance, feeding false information and sowing discord. On the battlefield, the Deathworlders fought with unmatched ferocity. Their warriors, once bound by codes of honor, now fought with a single-minded purpose: to annihilate those who had wronged them. The war reached its climax on the planet of Arinder, a lush world that had become the heart of the enemy alliance. The Deathworlders launched a massive assault, their forces converging from all corners of the galaxy. The battle raged for days, the skies alight with the fire of countless ships. The Coalition and Skarn fought desperately, but the Deathworlders' resolve was unbreakable. They had become a force of nature, unstoppable and relentless. The enemy lines crumbled, their leaders captured or slain. As the dust settled, the Deathworlders stood victorious. The once great Coalition lay in ruins, its world scattered and leaderless. The Skarn, too, were broken, their empire reduced to fragments. With their enemies defeated, the Deathworlders face a new challenge: rebuilding. They had fought for Retribution, but now they had to decide the future of the galaxy. Some called for continued dominance, to ensure that no one would ever challenge them again. Others sought a return to the old ways, tempered by the lessons of betrayal. In the end, they chose a path of cautious peace. They established a new council, composed of representatives from all Deathworlder clans. Together, they governed the galaxy, ensuring that justice and strength went hand in hand. The Deathworlders had snapped, but from the ashes of their wrath, a new order emerged. They had proven that mercy had its limits, and that even the most patient could be pushed too far. The galaxy had learned a harsh lesson. To betray a Deathworlder was to invite destruction. With the Coalition and the Skarn defeated, the Deathworlders found themselves at a crossroads. The galaxy was theirs to shape, and the decisions they made now would determine the future for generations to come. The new council, formed from the leaders of all Deathworlder clans, convened on Arcones. This world, once a desolate refuge, had become a symbol of their resilience and unity. The Council's first order of business was to establish a framework for governance. They had learned from the mistakes of the past, and were determined not to repeat them. The Deathworlders implemented a decentralized system of governance, allowing each world under their control to maintain a degree of autonomy. This system ensured that no single entity could wield unchecked power. The Council would oversee interstellar affairs, trade, and defense, while local leaders managed their respective worlds. To prevent the rise of another Coalition or Skarn-like threat, the Deathworlders established a powerful military presence throughout the galaxy. They deployed fleets to strategic locations, ensuring rapid response to any potential threat. Their military was no longer just a tool of war. It was a deterrent, a reminder of the consequences of betrayal. But the Deathworlders knew that strength alone was not enough to maintain peace. They invested heavily in rebuilding the worlds devastated by the war. They provided aid to those who had suffered, regardless of their allegiance during the conflict. This act of compassion helped to heal the wounds of the galaxy and fostered a new array of cooperation. The Deathworlders also sought to advance scientific and technological progress. They established research institutions on various worlds, encouraging collaboration and innovation. These institutions became centers of learning and discovery, attracting scholars and scientists from across the galaxy. Despite their efforts to create a just and prosperous society, the Deathworlders remained vigilant. They knew that the seeds of betrayal could sprout again if left unchecked. To safeguard against this, they implemented a system of checks and balances. Every decision made by the Council was subject to scrutiny, and transparency was prioritized. The galaxy slowly began to recover from the scars of war. Trade routes were reopened and commerce flourished. Cultural exchanges between worlds became commonplace, fostering a sense of unity and understanding. The Deathworlders, once feared and misunderstood, became respected leaders and guardians of peace. However, not everyone welcomed the new order. There were those who viewed the Deathworlders' dominance with suspicion and resentment. Secret factions began to form, plotting to undermine the Council's authority. The Deathworlders were aware of these threats, but they remained steadfast. They had faced betrayal before and emerged stronger. They were prepared to do so again if necessary. The Deathworlders' journey from mercy to retribution, and ultimately to governance, was a testament to their resilience and adaptability. They had learned that mercy had its limits, but they also understood the importance of balance. They wielded their strength with wisdom, ensuring that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. As the years passed, the galaxy prospered under the Deathworlders' guidance. Their legacy was one of strength tempered by compassion, of justice tempered by wisdom. They had proven that even in the face of betrayal, it was possible to rise above and create a better future. The day the Deathworlders finally snapped had been a turning point, a moment that reshaped the galaxy. No more mercy, no more games, only retribution. But from that retribution, a new order had emerged, one built on the foundations of justice, resilience, and hope. Years of relative peace had passed, but the Deathworlders remained ever vigilant. Their efforts to rebuild and stabilize the galaxy were bearing fruit, yet the shadow of potential threats loomed large. The galaxy had not forgotten the wrath of the Deathworlders, nor had it entirely forgiven them. Beneath the surface of apparent harmony, seeds of dissent and rebellion quietly took root. The Council's intelligence network, once solely focused on external threats, now turned inward. Reports of secretive meetings, the reemergence of old grudges, and the formation of clandestine factions began to surface. These factions were diverse. Some sought revenge for past losses, while others feared the power the Deathworlders now wielded. They believed that the galaxy had traded one form of tyranny for another. The Deathworlders' leaders, wary of repeating past mistakes, chose a path of cautious intervention. They dispatched envoys to engage with these factions, hoping to quell dissent through dialogue. However, their efforts were met with suspicion and resistance. The memory of the Deathworlders' unrelenting campaign of retribution was still fresh, and many were unwilling to trust their intentions. In one of the Outer Rim worlds, a faction known as the Children of the Phoenix began to gain influence. Led by a charismatic leader, Kale Rhine, they preached a doctrine of resistance against the perceived Deathworlder dominance. Rhine, a survivor of the Coalition's downfall, capitalized on the fear and resentment that simmered beneath the surface. His followers believed that the Deathworlders' rule, though benevolent on the surface, was ultimately a form of oppression. The Children of the Phoenix operated in the shadows, their movements carefully concealed. They built alliances with other discontented factions, amassing resources and preparing for a conflict they believed was inevitable. The Deathworlders, aware of the growing threat, found themselves in a difficult position. They could not afford to appear weak, yet they also knew that a heavy-handed approach could ignite the very rebellion they sought to prevent. The council convened to address the escalating situation. Voices within the council were divided. Some advocated for a preemptive strike against the factions, arguing that allowing them to grow unchecked would lead to greater conflict. Others urged caution, warning that such actions could undermine the fragile peace they had worked so hard to build. Ultimately, the council decided to adopt a dual approach. They increased their surveillance and intelligence-gathering efforts, hoping to identify key figures and disrupt the factions from within. Simultaneously, they launched a campaign to win hearts and minds, showcasing the benefits of their governance and addressing the grievances of the discontented worlds. Despite their efforts, tensions continued to rise. Skirmishes broke out on several frontier worlds, with Deathworlder forces clashing with rebel groups. The Deathworlders, trained in the art of war, managed to suppress these uprisings swiftly, but the cost was high. Each battle further strained their resources and eroded the trust of the galaxy's inhabitants. Kale Rhine and the Children of the Phoenix remained elusive, their influence spreading across the galaxy. They exploited every misstep made by the Deathworlders, using propaganda to turn public opinion against them. Rhine's message was clear. The Deathworlders, despite their claims of peace, were no different from the tyrants they had overthrown. The situation reached a critical point when a high-ranking Deathworlder envoy was assassinated during a peace summit. The assassination, orchestrated by the Children of the Phoenix, was a calculated move designed to provoke a response. The Deathworlders were now at a crossroads. They could retaliate with overwhelming force, risking a full-scale rebellion, or they could seek a more nuanced solution. The Council, recognizing the gravity of the situation, chose the latter. They initiated a covert operation to infiltrate the Children of the Phoenix and dismantle their network from within. Elite operatives were dispatched, blending into the factions and gathering crucial intelligence. The operation was risky, but it offered the best chance of avoiding a galaxy-wide conflict. As the Deathworlders' operatives delved deeper into the heart of the rebellion, they uncovered startling revelations. The Children of the Phoenix were not merely driven by resentment. They had uncovered remnants of ancient technology, powerful artifacts that could tip the balance of power. These artifacts, believed to be remnants of a long-lost civilization, possessed capabilities far beyond contemporary understanding. Realizing the potential danger, the Deathworlders intensified their efforts. Their mission was no longer just about quelling a rebellion. It was about preventing the resurgence of a power that could threaten the entire galaxy. The operatives faced numerous challenges, navigating a labyrinth of deception, betrayal, and shifting allegiances. As they closed in on Kale Rhine, the Deathworlders faced their most difficult test yet. Rhine, charismatic and cunning, had managed to rally a diverse coalition of factions under his banner. His vision of a galaxy free from Deathworlder influence resonated with many, and his access to the ancient artifacts gave him an edge. The final confrontation was inevitable. The Deathworlders, armed with their strength and determination, prepared for a battle that would determine the future of the galaxy. They knew that the stakes were higher than ever. The lessons of their past guided them, reminding them of the importance of balance, justice, and the need to protect the galaxy from itself. The day of reckoning arrived, and the Deathworlders faced the Children of the Phoenix in a decisive clash. The battle was fierce, with both sides employing their full might. The ancient artifacts, wielded by Rhine and his followers, unleashed devastating power. But the Deathworlders' resilience and unity proved to be their greatest strength. In the end, the Deathworlders emerged victorious, but the cost was immense. The Children of the Phoenix were defeated, and the ancient artifacts were secured. The galaxy, once again, was at peace, but the Deathworlders knew that vigilance was the price of that peace. The unseen threat had been neutralized, but the Deathworlders understood that the cycle of dissent and rebellion could never be fully eradicated. They remained guardians of the galaxy, aware that their role was not just to lead, but to protect and to ensure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. As the galaxy moved forward, the Deathworlders continued to walk the fine line between strength and compassion, ever mindful of the delicate balance that sustained the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve.